All right, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the RBG Esports coverage of the TrackMania Grand League Challenger Series. My name is Snowman, and I will be casting this wonderful event today. Randomize is unfortunately away this week, so you're just going to have me and this wonderful step coverage. This will be the fifth step out of 8, and I'm excited to see what it brings us. Of course, we will be following the RGB-sponsored American driver Nixotica today. Um, I have high hopes for this week, especially in Nixo's confidence with the last map, as we're actually seeing in the little pre-match warm-up here. But for those newer to the Grand League format or those looking for a quick refresher, I can go through quickly how the step will be played out here. So there will be 5 maps that the players will be playing. The first 4 will, of course, be in laps mode. 6 laps each. Your position in the final race wins you a certain amount of points. Take note of the difference of points between the 8th and 9th positions. Top 8 is what's really important, and helps towards push the players into faster, riskier lines instead of just safing for those middle tier places. Of course, you'll also get 2 additional points for the fastest lap. Nice little bonus for risking the biscuit. But the all-important final map, the Multiplier Round, will be what really decides this step. We'll see 8 rounds with all 16 players racing to be in the front, but only the winner will be able to multiply his amount of points that he accumulated over the first 4 maps. So we'll see that towards the end here, but it looks like we are quickly about to begin. So we can run the first map preview here. It will be Pole Party by Histo. This map we have seen quite a few times now. But of course, the main identity will be the poles. So they'll be running through 2 separate pole sections. One in the middle and one at the end. The end one will have free wheel, so if you make any sort of mistake into the poles, you're just going to lose a boatload of time. Not too difficult of a map, in all honesty, despite the chaotic looking nature of it. As the lines are pretty consistent, so in the past we've seen some very close races on this map, and it'll be interesting to see how the players come out right out of the gun. So it looks like we will be starting here quite shortly. Of course, we'll be following Nixotica for the majority of this step. However, we may touch a little bit on the leaders here and there. Of course, having Nixo at the front would be the most ideal, but mistakes can happen. It'll be all about your mentality, especially early on. You don't want to be losing out on silly mistakes early, only to affect your performance later on in the match. So this first map will be quite vital, but I'm sure we're going to have a great race to watch. Players are just warming up here through the first pole section, as we see. Nice little zigzag, and you don't want to be sliding off of the grass. So I'm quite excited for this last map. We did see a quite brief little preview in the pre-match warm-up. It's very much similar to this map, actually, in the sense that it will be quite close. The lines are not as difficult as something as Launchpad, which will be our 4th map. So I expect to see very close rounds and very fast times coming out from the players. So it'll be good. We, of course, could also see some strategies in not taking certain multipliers to gain higher multipliers later on throughout the competition, especially on an easier track. But we will get into that later today as we are rolling straight into Map number 1, lap number 1. This is Pole Party. Following on with Nixotica, of course, currently sitting in the 11th position with a tiny bit of a slow start, but of course, no big deal right as of yet. Nixotica, of course, known for his very consistent driving style, one who does not tend to push incredibly fast, and subsequently doesn't make any mistakes like we saw out of Link right out of the bat. He drops down a good 3.5 seconds already, so that'll be pretty tough to catch up on this map. As we see all of the players very, very close bunched together. Mime currently at the top with Rozzy and Evon. Mime and Evon, of course, the two Polish drivers who have been performing overall outstandingly this Challenger Series. So no surprise to see them at the top. Only 0.4 of a second separating first from 8th right now, with Nixo sitting in 9th. So as mentioned in the pre-match, top 8 will be vital, and that's what Nixo is going to want to try and do. Even if he's able to string in 4 8th places, that'll be a great performance out of him and be able to accumulate a good points haul before the multiplier. They're currently sitting in 9th, battling with Cap and Snow. Close behind Dofald as well, the two BS competition players with matching skins. So Nixo here, still driving very steadily, has only dropped down about 1.2 seconds from the leader. We see Fegley here, the other American driver in the Challenger Series. Got to give him a shout out as we got to rep the country code. Not too many U.S. drivers in the TrackMania scene. We've definitely seen more with the introduction of 2020, but in the past, it's been pretty dry. That must be said. So to see two U.S. players fighting in these high-level competitions, it's awesome to see. Nixo here, still sitting in a pretty comfortable 9th, actually. The players in front of him have kind of ebbed and flowed, so he now has Hydra and NRGZ battling for the 7th and 8th position. We see NRGZ with a bit of a wide tech turn, loses out on the exit speed, and Nixo will gain on him. Much better line through the dirt section. Nixo versus NRGZ, and he will overtake for that 8th position. As I had mentioned before, we see a lot of consistent lines. Not too many mistakes, actually. I think only, it looks like Link, Revolution, and Rozzy have made a mistake at this point. They are the 3 that are most far behind. Nixo currently sitting just under 2 seconds back from the leader, as he is battling for the 7th position with Cap still. Very clean drifts here. Going into the dirt section, it goes wide on entry and exit for the smooth transition from dirt to tarmac, and able to keep speed and carry all his momentum through this grass section here and into the tech U-turn. This initial pull section is really just a series of small chicanes. So once you are able to get the muscle memory down of the line, it's rather quite simple. As you see, there haven't been too many mistakes. Oh no, Nixo makes a very uncharacteristic mistake on a rather simplistic part of the map, actually. I think he was starting to almost getting into the zone, but so much so that he just kind of slipped his focus a little bit. That will drop him down into 10th position, but not too far behind the 8th place. We see Snow has made a massive mistake on exit. He has 0 speed and has to go the long way to make the jump. So Nixo will bump back up into 9th. We are in lap 5 of 6 at the moment. Trying to catch up to Wosile here. Behind Nixo is Miquatro, about half a second back, so pretty comfortable there. As I say that, Miquatro takes the grass line very aggressively and is able to gain some ground on Nixo. But at this point, Nixo's probably going to be really wanting to get that 8th position for those additional 10 points over 9th. Currently sitting at 1.3 seconds back from Wosile. We'll probably hope for a mistake out of one of the top 8 players at this point, as 1.3 seconds on this map will be difficult to make up in one lap. Miquatro, though, on a charge here, has overtaken Nixo in a much tighter line through the final tech U-turn there, will gain him additional time. It looks like one player has fallen down, though. So Nixo is back up into 9th. I'm not sure who that was. Oh, no. He takes the inside corner just too tight. Clips his wheel on the inside of the black corner there. And will lose out on quite a bit of speed, actually. It loses 2 positions to Hydra and Snow. 2 rather uncharacteristic mistakes, it must be said. Oh, and he goes a bit wide there. Will not have the right entry into the poles and will completely drop down. I think that's all sort of a mentality mistake. Once you just make that small one, you're just kind of out of the zone for a little bit. And it's much easier to make additional mistakes that you would necessarily never make in a traditional round. So it looks like he will have to settle for a lower position than ideal here. Looks like Soldier is... I think he had to respawn? Yeah, he will drop down. So Nixo will make an additional mistake. Lose out to Soldier again. I don't know if he has enough speed. Yeah, he has to respawn. He's just going to take it nice and slow now. We'll end up finishing in a 15th place, unfortunately. Not what Nixo wants to see, obviously. But what's really important now is changing his mentality. So I know he's probably going to be quite frustrated with himself, but we just got to move on to the next map, clear his mind, and try and improve on our next map, which will be Vertigo by Papa Pouet. So Vertigo, I like to say that we had horizontal poles, or no, we had vertical poles, but now we have horizontal poles to drive on. The name of the game will be the middle and final pole sections. The U-turn showed there is a middle one, and then these 2 pole sections here at the end, the last one driven on reactor boost. So almost going completely underneath the pole. Will be quite interesting to see. There will be a lot of mistakes on this map, unlike the last map. And these mistakes will be incredibly costly. So the typical time loss for falling off of a pole is about 10 seconds. And that's mostly due to the respawn positions. They're kind of brutal. So if you were to fall off of the upcoming U-turn here, you would have to respawn all the way back before the entry. As such, thank you for Nixo for demonstrating that. But it's very easy to risk these poles and subsequently fling yourself off of them. You want to get as much exit speed as you can, especially going into this free wheel sector here. as you won't be able to accelerate. So the more momentum you are able to win yourself out of that U-turn, the better and faster you'll be able to take the free wheel section. But faster you go on the pole, the more likely you are to fling yourself off and lose tons of seconds. So there's very much a give and take, and we'll probably see some players who are going to be full risking, making mistakes, and then climbing back up the order by risking again. But we'll roll right into it here. So this is map 2, Vertigo. First thing we do is enter in this long, fast dirt section here into a drop where the players will have to release to land smoothly. Otherwise, they'll fly quite far forward into a nice, long wall ride. And the first of the 3 straight poles. So going into the U-turn here, will we see any mistakes? We see Fegley dropping out, Cap, and I think 2 others dropped out as well. Nixo took the exit pretty safe. Probably just gonna get a little bit warmed up on this map, as you don't want to make a mistake on the very first lap. So we see NRGZ, Snow, Cap, Mime, and Fegley all quite down the order, sorry. Mime is a not an expected name, especially this early on. Saw that he won the last map and had the fastest lap to boot, so he currently sits at 27 points for himself. You see that Hydra is actually leading ahead of Wosile. Hydra, a name that's often in the top 8 positions, but not usually in the front. So good to see him doing well. Nixo with a great turn will overtake Snow and Revolution. However, he will fall off, unfortunately, and drop back. Oh no, he's fallen off yet again. He's really going to take this pretty easy now. Yes, he will. Together with Fegley at the back. Not the best start out of Nixo's possible run here. Quite unfortunate to see. Hopefully, he is able to maintain his composure, although I know it's going to be probably pretty difficult. 2 mistakes in a row can be quite devastating, especially if you make a third at the identity section here. Get stuck underneath the pole, very easy to do. And now I think, yeah. Definitely sort of getting to his head now. I'm curious to know, at this point, we might see him just opt to kind of reset, because at his position right now, most he'll lose out on is a single point. So it might be good to sort of reset the mentality here. But I think we might ride along with one of the top spots in this map. How about we go with Otak, who currently sits in 3rd place, fighting along with Hydra and Wosile at the top here. Still a very close fight, actually. No mistakes in the top 3 positions. Wosile has run quite well on this map in the past, but tends to make a mistake in the mid laps. Like 3 or 4 I've seen him make mistakes in, but we're currently in lap 4, so we'll see if that plays out. Going into the very brief freewheel and then quick tech turn. Otek trying to catch up to the top 2. Takes the U-turn relatively quick, actually, and it looks like he might be gaining on them on the top 2. Yes, indeed. Hydra, with a low amount of speed, will be overtaken by Wosile for the top spot. But Otak is definitely chasing now. Only 0.6 back from the top 2. Going into lap number 5. This battle is very, very close for this map. Usually we will see quite big gaps, especially down the order. See that Otak has nearly a second of a gap behind him to Mi4, who then has another about 0.2 to Evon, and then a full second and a half to Default, who sits in 6th position. But the 3 Frenchmen here are driving very consistently. He makes a massive mistake. I was going to say he had a little bit too little speed on the initial corner, and I think that threw off his line a bit. So he cut his second corner far too inside and ended up sliding right off. If we move up to the position in front of him to NRGZ, we'll see a nice close battle here. NRGZ in 7th, fighting with Default and Razi as they roll into the 6th lap of the race. Bosile has gained himself a 0.6 of a gap over Hydra, so he'll be looking to maintain that. He also has the fastest lap at a 102.5 even. Pretty quick. NRGZ, pretty good big gap to Default here. Will we see any mistakes? Yes. It seems to be there's a little bit of a caster curse, as I have now had 2 for 2 on the falling off of the U-turn, but he is able to recover on his respawn and overtakes Link. It looks like Wosile has made a massive mistake. He has now fallen down into 6th position, almost 6 seconds back from Hydra. So Hydra will take first. Evon will find himself into the 2nd position, actually, overtaking Mi4. Then we have Razi finishing 4th. We got Default, Snow. Otak will finish 7th. NRGZ 8th. Wosile will end up finishing 9th after another mistake. So he was running very well in the top position for a very long time, but ends up out of the top 8, which is a massive loss. And Nixo here will unfortunately not finish. I think he's probably going to be looking to fully reset his mentality. Unfortunately, one of the worst performances on Vertigo from him. But we still have 3 more maps to go, and of course the multiplier can make all of the difference. So we'll be going to Poolside next by Kiesla. Poolside, of course, known for its water pools. And in TrackMania, when you get water wheels, your car is basically like driving on ice, no matter what surface you enter on. So you'll see, especially right here through this U-turn, players will go for a long release no slide. Some will try to slide and then break the slide. That can be slightly faster, but is quite difficult to do, especially on a consistent basis. So I expect most of the players will be going for the nice and safe long no slide. But they'll just be running their warm-up here. Another optional line is to take the triangle through the checkpoint, as we see about half the players do. Gives you a little bit of a tighter line through the resulting grass section, and a touch more speed. Not enough to make all players go for the triangle line, but some will. And right there was a perfect example of how slippery the water was. So about half the players went for a no slide, and the other half went for a slide and then stop. And we saw multiple players just completely sliding out and bonking into the barrier. Doing so will obviously lose you quite a bit of speed and places. So we're about to roll into Poolside here. Again, hopefully Nixo can reset his mind a bit and capitalize on some nice, good points. We saw a great performance out of him on this map last week. So hopefully he can do it again this week. Interestingly, we already have, I was going to be able to count them, but it looks like 6 players who have not reached a top 8 position yet, which is actually kind of a lot entering in this third map. Usually it's a pretty mixed bag. But anywho, we are rolling into lap number 1 of poolside. Nixo with a fantastic start finds himself in the top 5. Looks like Mime is already leading by a good car's length over the rest of the jumbled pack. As we go into the first bit of water here. Nixo going with the no slide. We see quite a lot of slide cancels out of players. Nixo with not the most speed will get overtaken by a few players, but going into this identity here, just going to take it nice and smooth. Again, you can very easily slide out, especially on that plastic light blue bit, and doing so will result in a heavy momentum loss. But it's a rather consistent identity, so we probably won't see too many mistakes of the players. Already a nice tight gap going into lap number 2. We see Razi opting for the outside dirt line. A little bit riskier, but it does gain you much more speed on exit, as we see him bumping up into the first position. You do have to get that line right, though, as there is a drop directly after the dirt section, and taking the outside line will result in too much speed for the drop unless you are able to release properly. Going into the second version of this identity, we see somebody completely sliding out and running into the pole. I think that was Revolution. Yes, it was. He will drop down into that last position as the rest of the pack continues. Nixo currently sitting in 9th, fighting with Fegley and Link. But the leaders are very close. Top 11 only separated by a second right now. Nixo with not the best exit speed. We see Fegley making an interesting mistake. I'm not sure if he ran into a barrier before or if he had a loss of gear, but he will drop down. Currently sitting in 13th position. Nixo right on top of Otak. We see Otak going for the slide line, so he will slide all the way into the corner and then break the slide. And you can see the resulting gains. It is faster, but it's definitely more difficult. Nixo going very wide. Able to keep a great amount of speed, though, and will retake Otak for that 10th position. Over the sausage here and jumping into the long tech corner. Up at the top we see Dofault is leading, another name that doesn't tend to lead races very often. As I say that, he gets overtaken by Evon, but very close at the top. Still top 10 separated by 1.5 seconds, so incredibly close race. If any of these players make any sort of mistake, they will be completely out of the top 8 running here. Nixo with great speed out of the dirt corner. Again, opts for the no slide line. Will lose out to Otak just a bit, but not enough to worry him too much. We see Otak going for a Neo Drift entry on the first water. Another riskier option that can prove faster, although I personally don't think it's too much faster. I think the risk reward of doing that is not in one's favor. But we see Otak pulling off, and he's currently in 10th position. He and, oh no, Nixo gets a bad bounce on the dirt. Will completely flip over and has to respawn. That's very, very unfortunate. He was running very, very well within the pack, but will now drop down into 15th. Such is how close this race was. So he'll be looking to hold steady now. Already in lap number 5. He'll be looking for some mistakes out of players in front of him. Opts to take the no slide line pretty safe. And going into the water section here. Does the same. Actually, pretty slow. I think he's looking to just kind of get through this map. Yes, he does go a bit wide and will be overtaken by Revolution for that last position. So not the most ideal position for Nixo here, but there still has he still has one more lap or map, sorry, to capitalize on some good points hauls. Going into this lap, we will move up the order to Snow here just to see the end result. Snow currently sitting in 4th position behind Razi, Soja, and Dofal. Dofal actually with quite a good gap over the top, let's say 5 or 6. Otak with a impressive run. We saw him fighting with Nixotica in the 11th position, but already up in the top spots as we're going into the final identity section. Very, very close. We see a couple players risking for the Neo entry. Looks like Dofalt will definitely take first. Razi will hold off for 2nd, and then the rest 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, all within 0.1 after a 7-minute race. Very impressive stuff out of the top 6. See Dofalt grabbing himself to 25 as Nixo here finishes out his race. He's doing a little drift practice before he rolls it in. Mime with the best lap, a 108.22. Grabs himself an additional 2 points. As we roll right on in to the next map, which will be Launchpad by none other than the developers themselves, Nadeo. So this map is very different from the first 3 in that there is a very clear and obvious identity that separates itself from the rest of the track. This map also features the first ice section of the Grand League. So here we see the identity, where the players will literally be flying through rings. If you like Quidditch, then you might like this map. But they'll be driving on upward reactor boost, which will it basically allows your car to have a controlled flight of sorts. You only move forward if you press the accelerator, so you'll see the cars kind of stuttering as they try to rotate in the air, and that's players tapping the accelerator to get their car to rotate without completely flying past the rings, because the booster is very powerful. If you take the jump anywhere near full speed, you'll actually jump completely over the 2nd ring. So we'll see the players warming up through the identity here. They get the rotation, they get through the additional reactor boost, and then sling themselves into the start-finish line. I expect to see a decent amount of mistakes and some rather large gaps, as we saw just there in the warm-up. This map is definitely all about the end, though, as the rest of the track, although nicely made and technical, doesn't really tend to win you or lose you too much time. So here we are going into Launchpad. This is map number 4. This will be the first time that we see these players driving this map in laps mode. So it'll be interesting to see how well and consistent everybody is. You're going into this very fast grass sector here. You have to release or brake as you carry way too much speed to actually stay on the ground at full speed. We'll see the ice driving here. Ice is much faster when you are able to rotate your car nearly 90 degrees from where you want to go. So you'll see all of the cars driving almost completely horizontal through the corners. But it's also easy to slide out, so you can't over-rotate, or you'll completely spin around and lose on quite a bit of speed here. But going into the first round of the identities, you see Nixo with a good setup, along with much of the start leaders. Only a couple mistakes. I think I saw Link fall down. Fegley may have made a small mistake as well, currently sitting in 13th in front of Hydra and Snow. But Link looks like he's made the biggest mistake as he's 11 seconds back from 8th position. Nixo here, currently sitting in 11th. Only about 1.3 seconds back from the leader. So good stuff so far. You see Evon is currently leading over Wosile and Mime. Very tight battle for the 2nd through, looks like 6th, maybe even 7th position. As Nixo hunts down the pack together with Miquatro. Only the 2nd lap, so still plenty of time to make up any ground needed. Into the 2nd round of the identity here. Good control. Nice consistent lines. Doesn't look like too many players have made any mistakes actually, so that's very impressive. I would have expected a few more mistakes, even though we've only been 2 laps through the identity. Nixo here currently sitting in 10th position, still with Miquatro. Going through the ice sector, gets good speed on exit and is able to sling himself through into the drop. Both these players here will be looking to hunt down Solja, who currently sits in the 8th and coveted position. Nixo really needs to get some good points out of this map, even if he is able to win himself a multiplier, it's hard to multiply off of low points. That's just kind of math. Can't be multiplying off of 0 or 2 or 3, as you're really only giving able to max out in single digits. But we did see one mistake that helps boost our American driver up into 9th position. I believe it was Default, who has dropped quite down considerably. We do see Cap 24 seconds back, so that just goes to show how brutal this identity can be. Looks like Rozzy has made a mistake on the ice entry and will lose out to NRGZ and Miquatro. Nixo looking to capitalize as well as we go into the off-road grass sector. Pretty cool that this map uses the stadium ground. Not very common nowadays, as there aren't too many blocks available to allow you to go onto the stadium ground in a nice smooth manner. But pretty neat to see. You see Rozzy going very wide and then slingshotting back into the 2nd of the reactor rings. Nixo opting to take a much tighter line. The end result is pretty similar to each other. Nixo still fighting with Miquatro here, but now for the 8th position. So this battle has been going on for a good 3 laps now, which is quite impressive. So it looks like he's taking a much better ice line as we see Miquatro beginning to slide out. So going in as we are running on our 5th lap. Nixo in that good 8th position, but only about 0.4 of a second ahead of Miquatro. That suddenly cuts down to almost a quarter of a second. through the grass here. So still very close. It's going to have to fight off Miquatro for this 8th position unless one of the top players makes a mistake. So far, it doesn't look like any of them are going to. As, yes, no mistakes over the top. Very impressive. It seems like these players have definitely been training this map in order to capitalize on any gains from mistakes from other players. So if you know that this is going to be a tricky map, you can put a lot of time into it and hope to maximize your benefits when others who don't spend as much time into it flail. Looks like Miquatro has dropped down again, so Nixo does have an almost 2-second buffer to the 9th position. He currently sits about 1 second back from Razi. So that will be quite difficult to make up in this very last set of corners here. As long as he is able to run this identity nice and well, he will be able to snag himself the 8th position. So hopefully I haven't cursed him here at the very end. No, I have not. So he will get that 8th position. A nice healthy 15 points. And a good sort of mental buffer going into the multiplier round of this step. I'm sure he definitely needed that after his first couple of maps. But it's good to see him get some points. He can still do well if he goes for the ×4 or ×5 towards the end of the rounds here. But we'll see what he opts to do. Currently with 17 points, sitting in 13th overall in the step. So we'll be going into the newest maps. This is Bolt Holes by Rocket, a name that on paper looks like a different word, but is in fact bolt holes. So we can go into the little preview here. If we have it. So, as I said in the earlier part of this match, this is going to be a very sort of consistent map. Lines aren't too difficult, even though there are some wall rides and some loops. But the main thing will be the identity at the end, which are these series of jumps where you jump through the little holes, properly named bolt holes. They'll have to do 3 different jumps. The hardest of them actually being one of the earlier and the first jump that they'll go through, as it's very easy to have too much speed in order to line up the jump correctly. So players actually have to sort of release a bit in order to have the correct amount of speed and not over jump the gap. And then the second jump is more just about lining up your car. And then the third jump we'll see is also about lining up your car, but you have to time a pretty tight turn in order to get the jump right. You can very easily jump through the hole, but we might see some people completely jumping over the track behind the hole because their line isn't correctly prepared. So this is the first jump here. Looks pretty simple, but it's actually quite difficult to get the speed right. This one is just a lineup, and then the third one we'll see is pretty tight. We might see some players bouncing off of the outside of the gaps, and that's because the walls that are blocking the holes are made of plastic. And if you run into plastic, then you just tend to bounce off of it, which is a very interesting looking phenomena. But here we go. This will be the first round of the multiplier. Players will run 2 laps per round, and each round will have well, not each round, but the rounds as they progress will have an increasing amount of multiplier. So the first 4 rounds will see a ×2. The next 2, that being rounds 5 and 6, will see ×3 multipliers. Round 7 will see ×4, and round 8 will see ×5. when a player grabs a multiplier, he will be out of the race. So we'll see all 16 drivers driving right now, and then the next round there will be 15, and so on and so forth. But the name of the game is to be in the top spot, and we'll see if anyone opts to save for a later multiplier. As we see, first rounds of mistakes from Nixo here. Unfortunately, is not able to line up his initial jump correctly, so he will drop down to 13th. Likely not to be able to win this round, but it'll be good practice for him, especially as he's going to want to start pushing pretty hard for the top spots in the later rounds. We can go ahead and move up the order. Let's go with Miquatro, who's currently sitting in 5th place, about 0.6 seconds back from the leaders. Looks like Mime is currently leading over Snow, Otak, and Energy Z. I don't know. I assume Mime will go for the ×2, but he does make a mistake, so it would be pretty difficult to choose whether or not he wants to. Mime with a lot of points in the overall step. I think at this point he's just perfectly fine with taking what he can get and relaxing. But we see now Snow and Energy Z leading as we go into the last of our 2 laps here. Snow currently with 46 points. I think he'll probably take it as well, the multiplier, as long as he was able to make the jump. But he and Energy Z do not make it. They overjump it, so that puts Otak in the first position. I don't know if Otak knows he's in first. Yes, he does, so he will DNF. Otak, known for opting to DNF and save for later rounds, especially if he knows that he can be at the top spot. So that will result in Miquatro getting a nice double on his 54, and he finishes that with 108 points. I'm sure Miquatro is perfectly fine with that, as he's currently sitting in 8th spot in the overall league standings. And top 8 is where you want to be when it comes to playoffs, if I remember correctly. But we're going to be rolling in here to round number 2, yet another ×2 multiplier. We'll go ahead and follow along with Nixo, who's currently sitting in 10th position. So going into the wall right here, Nixo opts to take very, very low line, and doesn't quite work out for him. Pretty risky line. You can pull it off as he did there, but I think he was a little bit overzealous in trying to run it on the first round. So he'll again probably look to just do a little bit of warm-ups, try some riskier lines to try and go for the multiplier. But we can move back up the order. We'll ride along with Evon this time. We're currently 6th and 5th at the moment. Very close fight in the top 5 yet again. Going into the first jump here. Will anyone make mistakes? No. Evon very close to the top of the hole there, but is able to make through and carry a lot of speed, so boosts himself up from 4th into 2nd. You see Mime hunting down Otak, gets a little bit more speed off the exit of the plastic wall ride, and will carry that all the way through this loop. Mime going for a little bit of a more inside line. Will not have as much exit speed, but still gains a bit on Otak. Evon still very much in the hunt as well. Goes very low in the wall ride, but makes a mistake and clips on the circular hole, and will drop down into the 8th position. So if we bump up, let's go with Mime here, who's battling. Oh, as he also is completely out. Looks like he managed to get himself stuck, so he will DNF for this round, as we're now riding along with Cap, in 4th position. We see Energy Z making a mistake. Otak has passed up on a ×2 before. I imagine he'll do so again, so we'll see if Snow will then take the win. Never mind, he doesn't make the jump. So looks like Cap will actually benefit from that. He will double his 7 points to a impressive 14. So maybe not the most ideal option from Cap, but I'm not sure if he knew Otek was in front of him and would then opt to DNF. But he will sit at 14 now as we roll into round number 3. So with a good start this time around. He's sitting in 10th position. See if he opts to go for his tighter line on the wall ride this time around. I imagine he'll probably take it a little bit safer. No, he does go very tight. Has to release a little bit, but lands nice and smooth. Great tight sectors through the double Neo turn. I'm currently sitting in the top 3 positions now. So with 17 points, I imagine he will likely accept the ×2 if he is able to get one. But for now, this is going to be great practice, at least for the later rounds. This is a map that Nixo, I know, has felt pretty confident on going into this step, as opposed to other multiplier maps, as we see 2 mistakes around him. I'm not sure who it was. Nixo goes a little bit too tight and will completely bounce out of this round. I think he's going to opt to DNF as he decides to just hang out in the shade. We can go ahead and jump on with Razi, who certainly sits in 4th position, battling with Default and Snow, the 2 matching BS Plus competition players. Mime with a hefty lead, currently sitting 0.7 ahead of these 3. Again, I imagine Mime will opt to take the ×2 multiplier, unlike his competitor in Otek. He's currently DNF'd on this round. Mime actually opening up the gap further, now 1 second ahead of Dofal and Razi. Both of these players here will be trying to beat out the other because I don't think either of them would pass up on a ×2 in the case that Mime makes a mistake or passes up himself. And he will make a massive mistake. Razi will bounce as well, but doesn't lose as much speed. Will he make this jump? Yes, barely, but Dofal also makes it. And he makes the last one as well. So Dofal will take the ×2 and double his 64. I'm sure he's plenty happy about that one. But as said before, the first jump is the most killer, as getting your speed just right can be very difficult. So Mime will lose out on the ×2 as we roll into our last ×2 round, round number 4. We see Nexo here with yet another good start, although he loses out a little bit of speed through the penalty grass. Yet again, we see Mime and Otek in the lead, but we also see Link, who's been a little bit of a, he hasn't been in the top positions this map so far. As I say that, he drops down into 9th. Nixo currently sitting in 7th, just behind the leading pack. Going into the grass exit here. Takes it nice and wide. Gets speed for the nice smooth landing and into the wall ride. Goes for an earlier jump than his surrounding competitors to get a tighter exit. Going into the first jump here, we see no mistakes, actually. Everyone's able to slice and dice their way through the holes. So going a little bit wide, is able to hold on. And will hold on to the third jump as well. So he remains in that 6th position. Gets good exit speed out of the plastic as we see someone completely bonking into the plant. right next to him. So this front pack is incredibly close, actually. The top 5 separated by 0.18 of a second. And that is incredibly tight, so it's going to be super hard to call if anybody will be passing up the multiplier opportunity. Otak is in that crew, but I'm not sure. I assume he would probably just DNF if he knows he's as close to the lead as he is. But Nixo currently now sitting only about 1 second back from the leaders. Plenty of room for possible mistakes in this last identity section here, as we've seen on the previous 3 rounds. Going into the jumps here. Actually, no, Hydra makes a bit of a mistake, so he will drop down and immediately DNF as he's not going to make the jump. Evon will clip and not make the jump as well. Looks like Mime, Otak, and Wosile will make the jumps. I guess I was wrong about Mime, so he will purposely DNF along with Otak, and that only leaves Wosile, who's sitting in 5th, to just munch on a nice free ×2. So he'll bump up his 45 to a 90, and will plop himself right in that 3rd position. So now we have the ×3 multipliers. This is starting to get into the region where the players that were previously passing up on ×2 will likely take ×3s, especially if your Evon currently sits at 90 points, or 89, basically 90. The very impressive haul for the first 4 maps. But of course, 89 ×3 will result in a very hefty bonus. But what's better than 89 ×3, of course, is 89 ×4 or 89 ×5. As we see Evon with quite a big mistake, so I imagine he'll just DNF, or at least drive some practice rounds, but he will definitely be out of getting this ×3. Nixo currently sitting in 5th now, behind Link, Energy Z, Snow, and Razi. Otak just nibbling at his heels a bit as they enter into the first of the identity sections. Oh, we see 2 different mistakes, including Nixo. So Nixo will drop down. That's rather unfortunate because he had the opportunity to sit in one of the top positions. As if we follow along with Begley here, actually, in 2nd place. So he and Energy Z are about to capitalize on the mistakes that we saw in that first lap. Begley not one to have been up in the top positions as of yet of this map, but he'll be hoping for a little bit of a mistake from Energy Z, as he's going to have to claw back 0.8 of a second. We see Otak still in the mix, actually. I had thought he had decided to DNF, but no. Still running. And running very fast at that. Able to gap Begley almost immediately. The Energy Z still with a 1 second lead over these 2. Going into the grass jump here, going to swing down into the penalty grass to slow down. And then set up the correct amount of speed for the jump here. Looks like all 3 players are able to get the first one. Energy Z looks a little bit wide in the second, but is able to make it. Begley will clip, so he's going to have to go the safe route. But it won't matter, as Energy Z will take the ×3 multiplier for himself and triple his 52. Doing so will, of course, bump him up into the 1st place, sitting at 156. A good points haul for him. Another player that's in the middle tier of the current standings. So 154 will be, or 156, sorry, will be a great points haul for him. But we're running into our 2nd out of 2 ×3 multipliers. It's getting to the point where players probably won't be throwing away any multipliers as there's only 3 rounds, and it's quite easy to make a mistake on said 3 rounds, as we've seen in the past. So Nixo again sitting in about that 5th, 6th position. Currently 0.3 behind Hydra now, who's leading over Mime and Otak, as well as Link sitting in 4th. Hydra is a name we have not seen so far out of the previous rounds, so he'll be looking to capitalize on his good start. Currently at 50 points, would love to make that into 150, but instead he decides to slingshot himself out of the bolt hole and will be out of this round. Nixo now sitting up in 4th. Plenty of opportunity here as we go into the 2nd of our 2 laps. Great exit speed out of the plastic sector. Going into the loop. Looks like he is losing out a bit to Otak, who did have the fastest lap last round. So Otak is one that will be difficult to beat on these multiplier sectors when he wants to, but that doesn't mean that he can't make mistakes. We've seen him and Mime both crash out late in previous rounds. So still plenty of opportunity. Nixo sitting in a good 4th position. Mime about half a second ahead of the 2 Frenchmen in front. Oh, we see Link with a clip. He will drop down and will not be in contention for this win here. Going into the final set of jumps, we see Otak making a mistake, is able to keep some of his speed, but will drop down behind Evon and Nixo. Going into the final jump here, looks like Mime will decide to take it, so he will triple his 56. Evon will not be able to get a multiplier for now, currently still sitting at 89, and Nixo unfortunately takes a 3rd position. That'll be pretty rough for him, but also prove that he has the pace to keep up with these runners in these last couple of rounds here. So this is going to be our one and only ×4 for round 7. We've seen already 6 players out now with pocketed multipliers, so we only have 10 players left driving this round. See Otak right out of the gate with a very early lead, goes super inside, too inside in fact, on the wall jump, and clips on the landing and will drop down. Too much time lost actually. He's currently sitting in the 7th position. But Nixo here in 4th with a great start. Good speed on the landing. Will carry it through the wall ride and into the grass turn here. Looking to get a nice clean exit through the penalty grass. And then set himself up for the identity. Will do so very cleanly. We see Razi completely bonking and will be out of this one. Sets the 2nd one up well, and the 3rd beautifully. Will carry a nice amount of speed into the start of lap number 2. Goes wide for the exit boost on the plastic. And takes it much better than Hydra does, so he will bump himself up into that 2nd position. I think so. Now we'll see that number 2 on his car. Hopefully he's able to hold his nerves. I'm sure he's probably toggling to see where the leader is in front of him every once in a while. So these players will likely play without cars on, so they won't necessarily see what we are seeing. But Nixo with a great wall ride here is bumped himself up into the 1st position. This is going to be a massive denial of points from Evon if he's able to pull this off. Very nice grass turn there. Opens up the gap to 0.15 of a second. The heart probably is a bit racy now as we go into the final identity. He's got two players right on his heels. It's Link and Evon. Evon will actually full speed and carry it through the hit. He hits again. What is this? He goes wide. He's gone. No! Nixo just gets beaten out by Link. He goes just slightly to the side instead of going straighter. Link will carry more speed through the jump and just snipe him for the ×4. Oh, that must be brutal for Nixotica. That was his very close opportunity to snagging a ×4, albeit on 17 points. But he will have to shake off that close one for this final round. As we see, I think that was Fegley who clipped, so he will immediately DNF, and that will be the end of his step. Nixo here has to just roll straight into the final round after just losing out by 8 thousandths of a second. Evon now will also probably be kicking himself because he had a great opportunity to multiply 89 points by 4. But we'll have to try again on this round. Otak still hasn't grabbed himself a multiplier, and obviously he won't be throwing the ×5. So he and Hydra sit in front. Nixo in 4th position now, behind Soldier. So always with great speed through the penalty grass and makes up quite a bit of ground. Able to manage this jump quite well as well. Going to jump number 2 here, lines it up nice and beautifully. And then sets himself up well for the 3rd jump. He will go slightly wide though, and he clips his wheel on the barrier. Unfortunately, immediately DNFs. Not the most ideal ending, but we'll have to follow around on with Otak here, who's currently leading. Actually, we'll ride along with Evon. He has a good overview of the top 2 positions. So Otak and Hydra very, very close together still. They've been so since the start, really. And Hydra would love to deny Otak of this ×5. At this point, any of these top positions will have a massive amount of points if they are able to snag this ×5 and boost themselves way up the overall standing order. But Hydra makes a pretty basic error, clips on the grass, is not able to turn in, so that creates a huge opportunity for Otak. Now 0.7 of a lead. All he has to do is make the 3 jumps, and he will be able to nab himself the ×5. We see Evon making a bit of a mistake and will not make the jump. Razi as well, for good measure, will not make the jump. So right on with Otak here. Will he be able to do the last jump? Yes, he does. So he will secure himself a ×5 on 74 points. I think he might actually reduce the gap to Mime in the overall league ranking standings with that hole of 370 points. And of course he'll win the step 5 there. But very exciting stuff. Not the best step for Nixo. So he will remain in his 14th position for the league's ranking. Yes, in fact, Otak will jump Mime by a good 50 points or so. So good stuff out of him. Mime was at the top of the league ranking for the up until now. So for the first 4 steps, he was on top. But yeah, not the best out of Nixo this week. I think, unfortunately, some early mistakes and some simple mistakes led to some additional errors, and had a little bit of trouble refocusing. Was able to focus quite well into map 4, grabbing himself a nice 8th position, and nearly grabbed himself a ×4 multiplier, which would have been quite juicy, even if it was only off of 17 points. But unfortunately, not able to pull it out this week. We will, of course, have the 6th step next week with a brand new map, as well as the 3rd through fourth maps will be replayed. But for now, that has been the TrackMania Grand League Challenger Series. I, of course, have been Snowman, and thank you for having me. Of course, follow RGB Esports on Twitter, social media. Uh, be sure to give us a follow here on the Twitch channel if you enjoyed the show. But for now, I'll wrap it up. Of course, thank you to Vault, my beautiful broadcaster, who does plenty of work in the background. But yeah, I will see you next week. Randomize should be back. Will probably join me later on in the step next week, but we'll have a beautiful little duo cast for you. So as always, take care and enjoy the rest of your Sundays.